Hi everyone, I'm Haley, your host. This is Haley Spells Truth, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast ever. Uh, so today I wanted to talk about a concept that I really really love, and it's something I like. I actually did some research on it before I recorded this, and it was interesting because no one actually talks about this like at all. Like there was this one Bible verse that I saw, but it didn't really have anything to do with what I was talking about or what I thought the concept was, but it's my concept, okay? It doesn't need to be in the Bible to be true. And so here it is. It's as far below is as high as you go, right? So when we're talking about that, when I say that, I mean like when people talk about shadow work, that's essentially what I'm talking about is when you explore the dark side of who you are because everyone has one. Everyone has the dark side of them, right? I believe that there's you and then there's the dark side of you and then there's the higher version of you, right? There's the higher power. There's, the 3D version of you, the one that exists here on earth, and then there's the lower self. And the higher self and the lower self, they exist on a different plane. They exist in a different dimension because they're energy, right? They're not like the physical you. And so you decide on what you're going to do. The higher and the lower self versions of you cannot control you, but you decide on what you're going to do, right? So when you're doing shadow work, it's basically exploring that darker side of you, right? So um say you had a hard life, you went to some dark times, and I know everyone has gone through their fair share of shit. I mean, I don't there are it's different degrees for everybody, of course, but when you encounter a bad situation, when you encounter a bad situation, you're going to learn things about yourself. You're going to learn what your character is. You're going to figure out who exactly are you when things aren't easy. Because anybody can, hang in there and do whatever they're going to do. They can make plans for their life when things are easy. But when things get hard, that's when everything that you know to be true about yourself is really put to the test, right? So, say you are resilient, um, day to day. You're consistent, you're doing what you need to do, and then something bad happens. Like, and this is just a crazy example I just thought of, like your mom dies. Does that mean that that trait of yours like gets thrown out the window because it's like really hard and it's really sad? That's not like you can't if it's not true all the time, then it's not true. To be true means it's always going to be true no matter what, no matter the circumstance. You are X, right? So, with all that in mind, when you are exploring your shadow self, you have to remember like some people think like, and I've experienced this too, so I'm not judging, trust, but I used to think I was special in my dark thoughts, like the intrusive thoughts I would have, or just anything that would come up in my mind that I didn't agree with. The version of me that exists here on earth did not agree with what my lower self was saying. And it's not always your lower self. I just have to keep that in mind because, like I said, there are other things that, like entities and things like that, that aren't you, that will get attached to you and will try to fuck with you. That's a whole other thing, okay? But what I'm talking about is like when you are experiencing these thoughts and you're being like, oh God, like I don't agree with that at all. Like you feel guilty for even thinking the thought, right? Not even just acting on it, but thinking the thought. And I hope you're not acting on it. But for just thinking it, you feel like, God, like, ugh, no one else is thinking that. Like, they couldn't be. Everyone else is like normal. I say that loosely, okay? Because normal isn't normal. But, um, Like, no one else could be thinking these terrible thoughts. Like, I just must be like crazy, or I must be a psychopath. I must be an asshole. Like, whatever you're saying to yourself because you're having these thoughts, it's just not true. Because the reality is that did you act on them? Did you tell anyone about these thoughts? Probably not. Probably not. And it really makes you think, like, okay, if you didn't, don't wouldn't you think like other people would be doing the same thing? Like, other people experience these thoughts and they're like, oh shit, I can't tell anybody about this. Everyone's like ashamed. And so they don't say anything. And so everyone's living their own personal hell and never communicating about it because they're so ashamed that they even had the thought, you know? And so that's crazy. That's crazy. But my point is, when you are embarrassed of having bad thoughts or, whatever the fuck, you know what? Not even just bad thoughts. If you've like had bad actions, if you've done the wrong thing, me, it is what it is. You live and you learn, you make mistakes and you grow. It's what you do with the information that you were given for making that mistake. That's it. And so I touched on this a little bit in the last episode about how the week that I had been having was rough. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, okay? It's like I spoke that out into the universe, and the universe was like, hey girl, guess what? You thought that was hard? Guess what? Because it's about to get a hell of a lot worse. And it did. And it did. And it was, oh my God, it was rough. Okay. I thought the week before was rough. Oh my gosh. It kept going. It kept going. And I literally thought I was in a depressive episode. Like, I didn't realize, like, you ever have those times where it's like, you're pushing, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. And like, one day you just wake up and it's like harder to do it. It's harder to do it. It's not like impossible, but it's just harder. And then you wake up and then you get it done that day and you're like, okay, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow, brand new day, new day. And then you wake up and then it's worse. And then you do it again. And then you wake up the next day and then it's worse. Yeah. It's me too, babe. Me too. But yeah, I was experiencing some crazy shit and it just it was like I could not get a break. I literally it was like I was fighting with myself. I was fighting for my fucking life every day, doing even the most basic shit at some point. Like at some point, even doing the most simple tasks just like killed me. I was like, all right, I need a nap. I can't do this anymore. Um, but you want to know something though? Like and it pushed me to some limits of like past patterns that I used to have that I broke. And I I ended up actually talking to my brother about it. We take our dog out every night for a night walk. And I literally just like broke down in front of him and he didn't even say anything. I wasn't saying anything. I was literally just crying because I didn't know what to say. All I knew was I couldn't keep living in that alone, you know? And so he just was like sitting there. He was just like hugging me and like just being there for me. And that was so important that I had that because when you feel so alone and so special in these dark times, like no one else is going through this and no one else can relate to me and I'm alone, right? It's like that's where your lower self wants you to be. It wants you to keep going lower and lower and lower until you like die, like until you kill yourself, until something like detrimental happens, like you ruin your life because you feel like you're alone. And I can promise you right now, to anyone watching this, you are not alone ever. Even if you don't have someone like my brother or, just anybody like DM me. I will help you. Like You are never ever going to be alone. As long as I'm alive, like I I'm promising you. And it's not just about talking to somebody, it's the fact that people are going through what you are going through, just no one has the balls to talk about it. No one has the balls to sit here and say, yeah, you know what? My life isn't that great right now. My life isn't that perfect. My life isn't as great as I make it out to be. Like all of these social media influencers that try to you know, get these certain angles and, cut out the bad parts of the video and like do all this stuff. They're not real. It's not real. Nothing you see on the internet is fucking real. At this point in 2025, they figured out how to fake everything. When you feel alone, you're not. And when you are in this deep pit and it feels like you can't get out and you're trying to do everything that you can to become this new person and it feels exhausting and all you want to do is just stop, believe me, I understand. I completely get it. But when you are in these times, it is so important that you show the fuck up anyway. You have to show the fuck up anyway. Like the whole past 2 weeks, I didn't want to go to the fucking gym. I didn't want to. That's one of the biggest passions that I have is going to the gym. I've been going to the gym for like 2 years now. Oh my God. I didn't want to go. My workouts were going like terribly because I had recently switched to going to the gym like really, really early in the morning. Like I wake up at 5 now and do this whole thing. And the minute I started waking up at 5 and like going to work out, oh my gosh, that's when everything went to complete ass. I'm telling you, oh God. Because if you work out, sleep is a huge, important part of working out. And I wasn't getting enough. I was going to sleep at like maybe 9, 10, waking up at 5. That's not enough. It's not enough. And for how intense I work out, I felt like garbage. Garbage. I was tired all the time. I couldn't think. Like nothing was working out for me. And so when when I got past the feeling tired, it was like the residue of those negative thoughts and all of the negative stuff that I had been going through because I had no sleep. It was like residual over the next week. But because I wasn't conscious enough to like stay on top of that, like I was already fucking exhausted from the week before. And so to move on to the next week and have all this residual shit, and I just had no idea. It felt like walking into saran wrap. That's something my mom says a lot, and so true because you have no idea until you're there. That's what happens when you go unconscious. If you're not on your shit and you just walk right into a bad situation, a bad week, like whatever, it can fuck you up. Like in a way, like if you don't have the ability to like bounce back immediately and it takes you some time, you will spend 3 weeks trying to get over that one bad week. And that's not somewhere you want to be, especially if you don't have that much experience, like, you know, building this new person just yet. Don't fuck around. Literally, don't fuck around. There's a time and a place when you can be like, okay, I can chill. But when you're starting out, it's so important that you are like if it's really dependent on how bad do you want it. How sick are you of yourself? How sick of it are you to keep fucking around and doing the same shit? Because people do the same stuff, they're like, "Yeah, I got time." They wake up one day and they're 70 years old and didn't do shit. I don't even know. I mean, if that's what you want to do, hey, listen, I'm all for free choice. Do what you want to do. I would hate if somebody, got all my shit because, I wasn't doing with it. But look, look, if you're saying that you want to be different, if you're saying you want this life, you need to know, first of all, what does it require? And second of all, can you do it? Can you get out of your comfort zone every second of every day until you get it down? Until you can like relax. Can you? Can you? Because most people can't. And I'm not saying you can't, but I'm saying it takes a strong motherfucker to get that shit done. So, here's something I also wanted to touch on. When I said a little bit earlier, when I was in my depressive episode, it was pushing me to old patterns that I had broken before. Now, when this first started happening during this time, I was like, there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way that I'm dealing with it. Because I had broken free from these patterns for months now. And I was like, there's come on, like get a break. I don't want to deal with this. Like I'm already going through a rough time. I don't like there's no, 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 no. And it made me so disappointed because I was like, is there something I'm doing wrong? Like, how can I be dealing with this again? Like, it really irked me. It really irked me. And I believe nothing happens by coincidence because the next morning I was at the gym in the parking lot about to walk in. My mom calls me. She's like, hey, just so you know, whenever you are encountering a a bad pattern, like whenever you are, I can't remember exactly what she said. Whenever you are experiencing old things that come up when you're making this new person, you have to realize that nothing's wrong. Like nothing's wrong. Like when you are creating this new person, you have to be patient. It's not going to be this linear upward scale of like, okay, I got past this and now I'm going to move on to this and now I'm going to move on to this. Sometimes it's like this all the time. You go lower than you were at the start and then you go up. And that's the main point I'm talking about. As far as low as you go, as high as you are, you have to be able to go back to your shadow self and revisit that. And she was revisiting me hard, hard. Okay, but when I came out, I was so much happier and stronger than I was before those 2 weeks had even started. Like I learned like okay, and this is how I explained it to my mom when I was talking to her about it. I was like, so before when I would go through cycles of like um I would go through cycles of like, okay, I'm going through a really rough time right now, whatever that may be. Okay, it might not just be me, it might be like something going on in my life, like whatever. Um, and it felt like I was on a really scary roller coaster and I was going through like the pits of hell and there was like fire and demons and like babies dying all around me. And I'm like holding onto this roller coaster and I'm scared because I don't want to fall back into old habits that are bad for me, right? And so I like old thinking patterns, old habits, stuff like that. And so before, how I would handle that is I would be really scared and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, could you just imagine if I like actually let go right now?" And the whole point of the roller coaster is that you're supposed to hang on. You're supposed to hang on. You're supposed to stay there no matter what. I know it's scary, but you have to hang in there. You have to stay true to your values and what you want, no matter what's going on. And so when when I would be on this roller coaster way back when, and I'd be like, damn, like imagine if like I let go, like imagine how bad that would be. And then, oh my God, imagine it, I let go. And I would fall right back into the cycle and I'd be right back where I started because I didn't have the ability to hang in there. I couldn't do it. I mean, I could. Don't get me wrong. You could do whatever you want, no matter what. But I didn't feel like I could. Like that my strength wasn't there yet. And so during these couple weeks, like, and that's a long time for me to be in a rut. You know, maybe it's like for a few days and I'm like, okay, man, that was rough. But for it to be 2 weeks this time around, it was like, wow. Oh boy. That was a long time to feel like shit, and not really have a day where it's like, okay, this is cool. And so when I was going through these past couple weeks, I was on that roller coaster again. I was like singing all types of shit and it was bringing me to some low points. Like when I got to a really low point and I didn't falter, and I was still hanging in, it went even lower. Like I was getting tested. That's honestly what it felt like. Like it was really saying like, "Okay, are you willing to do this? Like are you serious this time?" That's what it felt like. And every time I was like, "Yeah, yep, no conversation, no debate. I'm not no. I'm just doing this because that's what I said I was going to do." Right? I'm staying true to my word. I'm doing everything that I want to do because I can and I will. And so I just hung in. I hung in. I didn't miss a day at the gym. I might have, I might have had a cheat meal or two. Whatever. Doesn't count. But yeah, like I did it. Like I did it. And that's something to celebrate. Like man, I really did that shit. I really did that shit. And it was so awesome because I never thought I'd be able to do that. I honestly like growing up and having, the male parental figures that I did, um, they always made me feel like I was weak. And when you are made to feel like you're weak and you can't handle anything, you don't. I mean, unless you're like my mom, who like pushed through that shit anyway. I don't even know how, but she did. Um, but when I was growing up and I was being treated like I was weak and I was just this girl that couldn't handle anything, and I also can't really take a joke, so I would get made fun of a lot by, my stepdad or whoever it may be. And it became a thing because I couldn't take a joke, I couldn't handle anything. I was just like this sensitive little baby. And when you are made to feel like you're weak, you act as such. You really start believing it. You call her Susie enough, she's going to be, responding to Susie. So, like, but that is not something that is like in place. It's not set in stone. You don't have to be weak if you don't want to. If you want to be weak, cool. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people that said they want to be strong and are still acting weak or just want some tips because I get that. But main point is that when you are going through something like this and you feel like, you're experiencing old habits and you feel like you've done something wrong, I promise you, this is life giving you the opportunity to respond differently, because these things are always going to be there. Like you whether you're in your old habits and you're in your old thinking patterns or not, these old patterns and these things that show up, like the opportunity to respond the same way you always have, they're gonna be there. They just will. But for you to respond differently is the change, is you being that new person, right? So, you know, just think about that one just a little bit, because once I realized that, I was like, oh, so I have changed the situations around me, right? Like, whatever they may be, I'm responding differently, but I can't control everything outside of me. Just because I changed doesn't mean the world did, but I did. I changed. And that's something to actually like recognize and be like, okay, you don't need the whole world to change for you to change. And that's it. Okay? So, with that, sitting in your feelings is a literal fucking superpower. Okay? When I was going through the things that I was going through, oh my gosh. I feel so much more like I feel so much more trust within myself now because I was able to hang in there when I felt like my world was crumbling. Um and it was literally insane. But the thing is like it wants you to feel like you're dying. Like you're going to die if you don't go back to your old patterns. That's that whole thing like atrophying. When you ignore the old patterns, the old you, it atrophies. it starts decaying because once you're not giving it that energy, that attention, it's like, well, what do? I can't exist without you. It can't exist without you. You have to be the one to give it life. And when you don't give it life, guess what? There's no life anymore. It doesn't have anything. It can't. There's nothing for it to do. It all it does is die. And so, uh to sit in your feelings and to ignore everything that's going on, I know it feels fucking crazy, but just do it. Just do it. Just sit in those feelings. And I promise you, once it's over, once that phase, because it's not going to be like, complete shit for a long period of time. I mean, maybe if you make it that way, but if you just continue to ignore these old patterns and this old person and this old version of you, it will die. It literally will. And it's almost like you have to go through a little grieving process because that's how you knew yourself for so long. And even now, for me, it's like I don't even recognize myself anymore. Like, straight up, I look in the mirror and it's like, where did she come from? Like, I can't even explain that. Like, the amount of change that I've done within the last maybe year or so, I can't even describe to you like how insane that literally was for me. When you are changing into this new person, and I talked to my mom about this too, because I think this is a really big, important part about changing, is that when you start to change, you don't always look at yourself objectively. Like, once you're making these changes and you're doing what you need to do, and it's been a few weeks, a few months, however long it's been, and you're still doing that stuff, but these like old thinking patterns will come up and you're like, God, like, I just want to do X, whatever that may be. And it's something that you don't want to do and you used to do it a lot. Um Once you stop identifying with your past, because all the power you have is in this current moment. That's all you have. You can't control the future, you can't control the past. All you control is right now. What can you do right now? So, when you are making these changes, it's like you almost forget, like, oh, I actually did do the right thing just now. I actually have been doing the right thing. And I'm not that person that I was anymore. Even though it feels like they're so there in my head but it's your head is not real. This is a thing that's from here. Your head is something that it's made to fuck with you. It's made to test you, right? And so when you are like identifying with this person that you used to be, you're not doing yourself any favors. You have to recognize, okay, I did the right thing this time and I didn't die. Nothing happened. The world didn't collapse in on itself. Like, every bad thing I thought was going to happen if I just did X, the right thing, it didn't. I'm actually a better person now because of it, because I decided to take the right step instead of the wrong one. And congratulations, babe. I'm so proud of you because no one says that enough, okay? I know you are your own personal cheerleader. I know I am. Uh Congratulate yourself more because no one does that enough. I'm telling you, no one does that enough except for the people that shouldn't be doing it, ironically. But yeah, so really stop identifying with this person that you don't want to be. If you don't want to be them, stop identifying. It's not your identity anymore. You don't want to be that, so stop it. Just stop. I promise it's okay. I promise. You don't have to be that anymore. So, but anyway, I honestly feel like that's a good way to end this episode. I didn't want to make it another 40-minute one. This one's gotten pretty long too. I was gonna make it like 20 minutes, but I just can't. I can't help myself. I have so much to say. Um, but yeah, I really hoped you guys enjoyed this. I did start posting gym content, by the way, so I will link that in the description so you guys can go check that out. It's on TikTok. Um, but yeah, I really hope this one helped you because I know all of this information really helped me over the past couple weeks, especially this last week. I'm doing much better now, and I'm back stronger than ever. And I'm really excited for what's to come, and I'm really excited for what you guys got going on too. Because whoever's watching this is very important to me because y'all are watching the beginning stages of my little podcast, and that means the world. So yeah. Anyway, um, I'm gonna enjoy the rest of this, and I'm gonna get to editing. So have a blast. Okay, I will see you all in the next video. Bye.